What's up, CHFFL? Welcome back. 2022 season, year 15 of the CHFFL. I hope you like what we've done with the place. I've tried to make everything look a little more professional this year, and I thought it was time for a refresher for our style. Before we get into this year's previews videos, this is what I'm going to call the preview primer. I'm doing things a little different this year. I added a new type of value calculation that I think is going to be interesting to you guys, or maybe not, but I thought it was important to get to it rather than making the first preview video longer. We're also going to go over keeper value shift, which should be important to everybody to know about how that's looking this year. So as a quick refresher, Valuecalc, I'll link to the video where I explain this in more detail, but I go through my previews and give every team a number value based on adding up the singular values of each pick and keeper that they have. There's a lot of math that went into this, and the data might be a little out of date now, but I think the trend is probably true. Basically, all you need to know is that the value calc of one player equals a function of the numerical pick. So it's a big calculation, and say it's pick number 10, I plug 10 into that equation. If you're keeping a guy who's ranked at number 10, I plug 10 into that equation just the same. All rankings, as usual, are Fantasy Pros ECR to keep things kind of neutral. Now, there's always been a weakness in value calc that has kind of annoyed me, and I wanted to address that this year, and that is keeper value shift. As a refresher, keeper value shift is the basic idea that in a keeper league, you can't get as good of a player at a certain pick as you would be able to in a non-keeper league. The easy way to think about this is in the first round this year, Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson, and Jamar Chase are all being kept. That's 3 first-round guys. So say you have pick 12. In a normal league, you'd expect to get the 12th best player, assuming everybody agrees on rankings. But in our league, you can only assume you'll get the 15th best player because 3 of those top 12 guys are simply not available. I approximate value shift some years I forget. But I go through and I say value shift goes up 1 if I'm going through the rankings and that player's not available. It then goes down 1 as soon as a pick won't be used because there's a keeper there. I plot this all out, and this is for everybody to use. And this year's value shift is pretty much what our standard tends to be. In the second round, you're going to get between 3 and 5 extra picks added, and then the worst zone is here between rounds, 4 and 7 or 8, I'd say. The maximum value shift this year is looking to be about 14 or 15. So at pick 60, you're probably getting someone who's over the 70th ranked. This value shift, I plotted out and got this equation circled here, and I'm calling that the expected value of any pick. So if value calc was a function, an equation of a pick number, I'm now doing adjusted value calculations. I'm calling it AVC, and instead of plugging in, say, pick 10 there, I'm going to plug in the expected value, which would be pick 15. I'm also taking off the last 2 picks for everybody. They're not getting added to your team's total because ESPN forces us to take a defense and a kicker, and I just don't think that there's any difference between those. This actually hurts me the most this year in terms of the number because my last 2 picks were really high. That's partially what led me to do all of this calculation. Anyway, I'm also doing some minor adjustments where the curved fit doesn't quite make sense, but those are tiny. All right, this year's previews are going to have 3 different categories instead of the normal 2. It's going to be my ranking, the traditional value calc, and now this adjusted value calc. I hope that that adds a lot of value to my reviews. A few things to note before we start the preview videos. This year, the league's entire value calc was lower, which means that we didn't do as good of a job carrying keeper value over. However, we do have the highest single team ever, and as expected with those 2 pieces of information, that means that we have a higher standard deviation between teams. So there's a bigger spread between the top and the bottom this year than there have been in past years. Obviously, last year, Max was one of the lower ranked teams and went on to win the whole thing, so it's possible this doesn't mean anything. Anyway, best of luck to everyone, and I will see you very soon for the first round of previews.